Barely. I think it's probably 30 seconds early, is it? I'd rather be early than late anyway. Hello. So I might try quite a long stream tonight. I'm going to see if I can potentially get a 2-hour stream going. I think I've done a 2-hour stream once or twice before. But I feel like doing it. Evening, Richard. I've not seen your video for today yet. I've seen that you've uploaded one, but I've not clicked on it yet because I thought I'd watch it after the stream because I think it went live about 15 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm alright, T55. And no, the GP5 is not still in production because it was made by the Soviet Union. There's a Soviet mask very similar to the GP5, or a Russian, well, I should say a modern Russian mask, made by a certain company that's very similar to the GP5, but it's not technically a GP5. No, I've got no interest in any of the new Assassin's Creed games. Yeah, we've talked about the Avon FM53 on loads of these streams. As I've said, I wouldn't mind getting one that looks cool, but I'm not going to spend hundreds of pounds on a mask. Ah, that's very cool, Richard, thanks. Sounds good. Depends totally on what the laws are in your country and everything like that. Because if you're quite young, probably not a good idea for you to have a lighter. Because the law says you can't. I have no idea why, but the law says you can't do it, so you can't do it. Isn't it Guten Arbeit, technically, because it's evening, or I don't know which one that is, or is that goodbye? I don't know, that's Auf Wiedersehen, isn't it? Seems a silly reason to give a game away for free. But, yeah, well, I've got no plans on getting it. Yeah, €13 isn't a bad price for a GP5. Well, that's been there for a while, that warning, but people have actually started trying to deplatform me now, where, I guess because they don't like my videos for some reason, they said apparently I'm a terrorist or something stupid like that. So I thought I'll make sure the warning stays up on all these videos, just because there's two reasons for it. One, it pretty much, you know, the warning being there pretty much proves that what they're saying is bullshit. And the other reason, just having the warning there, is just when people start talking about topics that are a bit dodgy, you know, it's easier to tell people, look, the warning's right there, don't talk about those things. Oh, the single box respirator, or simplified box respirator, you mean the silent Mima? The WW1 one? What about it? I don't know, I can give you advice on a WW1 mask. No, there's no such thing as a new GP5. Here's an interesting thing. Why doesn't everybody post which country they're from in the chat? Because I know some people just say stuff. Well, I don't really know what I can advise you on with a World War I mask, because I said I'd never buy them. So far, lots of the UK, a few people from the US, a couple from sort of the Balkans, Yugoslavia type area, Baltics and Latvia. Estonia, that's Baltics as well, isn't it? Oh, I better actually mention to everybody that I'm streaming now on Discord, just because otherwise they sometimes don't spot it. So let me just quickly do that, it won't take me a moment. Let me just do this and then I'll be back with you. I need to make sure I close the right window now and not OBS, but there we go. Stream's still going. I imagine that's a starting bid on it. It's not going to. They're not going to be selling an actual mask for that price. That's cool, Richard. I'm not overly fussed if it's slightly bigger. Well, the more problem I've had, Beeben, is where I've had people cause trouble on there. Because I've said to people before, I don't mind, you know, if they want to pay $1 or whatever, just come on then, you know, not pay another $1 or whatever. That's not a problem. I wouldn't kick people off for that. But I've had a lot of problems where people come on just to insult other people or try and cause trouble, because I guess they think for $1 they want to troll people for $1. I just thought Mike's comment was quite funny there. But yeah, hello to everybody just joining. No, I've barely ever played poker. I've played a couple of card games, but never really bothered. I don't really gamble, so there we go. I'll just mention this now. If people are chatting with each other in the chat, can they do the @ symbol and who they're talking to? Because otherwise I have no idea. And I don't know if it's a message for me or not. Right, I'm going to take slow mode down to 5 seconds at the moment, although I'm getting a lot of messages. That way if people have like a multi-part message, they can at least type it out faster. What was in the S6 gas mask? I like the S6. It's a cool looking mask, although it has a weird fisheye effect. Well, out of all the masks I've got, the Shums or SHMS, out of a lot of the masks that exist, probably those US optical masks from World War II, because they're creepy and weird looking. So if they came in that condition, it means they were damaged already, T55. If you buy like decent ones, they should be in pretty good condition. Annoyingly, my one doesn't have the really cool filter with it, like the ones they have in 6 Days. So it's one of those airsoft masks, isn't it? I've seen one where she's posing with SAS troops after the embassy siege. But I've not seen one where she's protected by SAS. Ah, 33 watching, that's good. That's a good number to start with. Did it help that I said to people that I'd be streaming at this time? Because I don't know if I put the community posts on, if it actually is helpful or not when I say that, because I don't know how many people actually end up seeing the community posts. I've not actually seen a picture of that, Peach, your cold weather mask. Alright, cool. Don't forget to like the stream, everybody. So far there's 16 likes, but if there's 30 odd people on it, it'd be good to get 30 odd likes. Right, I might as well do it in the future then, as long as it's not just I suddenly decide I'm going to do a stream and then, you know, start a stream almost straight away. If I know I'm doing a stream later in the evening or something. Oh, what you can't see, because the disclaimer is blocking it, is my plate carrier's all set up now. I've not got a trauma plate for it yet, but I have got a... There goes the coat hangers I had inside it. I've got a chopping board in there to act in the slot for the front trauma plate for the moment. And I've got a front and back Kevlar plate in it, or Kevlar panel more precisely. So what we'll do in a minute is push the chair out the way, and wish I had a chair that was slightly smaller, to be honest, because the problem is with this chair, it's a good chair but the armrests always get in the way of the desk. So let me push that all the way back there. I'll get my glasses off because I don't want to crush them under the vest. And we'll put this on a little bit and we'll see how long I can manage to have the vest on without overheating or hurting my back or something. Right, so I'll just stand here so you can actually see that I'm doing it. There we go. I'll pop my glasses back on now. It should be an S6, I assume, Ironman Spartan. Because I think the S10 came into service in some point in the mid-80s, like 86 or something like that. Yeah, there you go. I'll give you a slow spin round so you can see all of the vest. I've got the GSR bag on the back like a rucksack, because, you know, it being a bulky mask. So yeah, I've got the Kevlar plate goes from, I don't know if you can about see it there, but, and then the disclaimer's going to be in the way, isn't it? Hang on. Right. Let's shuffle across to this side of it. Right, so the Kevlar plate goes right down to here, or the Kevlar panel. So that's where the Kevlar panel goes, and the Kevlar panel goes up to just where my thumb is now, so the finger. So that's where the top of the Kevlar is, about there. Yeah, there. So the Kevlar completely covers all the front section. And then the wood chopping board is there. You can see where it's actually a bit bulkier. Maybe from the side the chopping board's a bit more obvious, because that fits into the plate slot completely. So yeah, if you can see about there to maybe there, that's where, again, I'm not in frame, am I? Annoyingly, because the disclaimer, which I have to have up, is in the way. That's about there to there, so if I had a trauma plate in it, that's the bits it would cover. I'm not going to, even if I buy a trauma plate for this, I'm not going to bother with a back trauma plate, because I just don't see the point in it, because I've got a Kevlar panel in the back. That's the one that wraps around to about here on each side, yeah. So the Kevlar's all the way there, and up to the top. So having a level 2 Kevlar panel in the back is probably good enough, in all honesty. Yeah, so at the moment, I imagine it'd be totally crossbow proof with a massive chopping board in there in front of a stab and spike protective Kevlar panel, but it would obviously be better with a proper trauma plate in there. But again, I'm not going to hurry and get a trauma plate anytime soon. I'm just going to get one when I spot one for a good price. But yeah, overall it will be about £100 to have this vest totally set up to military spec, you know, rather than spending £300+ to buy a pre-set up one. So that's a pretty good way of doing it. Right, with the Kevlar panels I've got in it at the moment, £30 to £50 for that, Jacob, but if you're not in the UK, whatever that is in equivalent currency. With the Kevlar level 2 panels in it, things like 9mm and maybe 357 Magnum, if I had the trauma plate in the front, depending on if it's level 3 or level 4 trauma plate, potentially AK rounds 5.56 and 7.62 by 51 NATO. All of those are deactivated guns in the back. None of them are airsoft ones. The thing is with a GP5 is the masks themselves are generally fine. The issue is that they can't take modern filters without you messing about with it. So that's where, you know, the trouble comes in with a GP5. Oh look, that keeps me sitting up straight in the chair with the backpack on that. That's quite useful actually. So it means I won't slouch, because it's impossible for me to slouch with this carrier on. But yeah, the issue of a GP5 isn't that it's a GP5, the issue is that because it only takes GOST filters, unless you put O-rings in it so you can force a NATO filter on, but then you can still damage the mask's thread doing that. As I said, the issue is that it limits you to what filters you can and can't get. Yeah, most optical masks are really creepy because they've got the weird circular eye bits, haven't they? I don't have any World War II footwear, so I really can't comment. I don't know who you're responding to that with, Antonio, but as said, the GP5 is fine in itself if you could get filters for it. If you have filters that are, like modern filters like FP5 filters on the GP5, it will still work. Because the rubber and the seals are still going to be fine. Like, obviously, a more modern mask like an FM12 or something like that is a far better choice, but there's nothing stopping the GP5 from working. Well, if you find them going for £50, get one for £50, but don't go much above that. £50 to £60, I think, should be the top end of what you're paying for an FM12. Are you meant to be saying a Yugoslavian? And what do you mean, a Yugoslavian gas mask? I've got the Yugoslavian M1 and the Yugoslavian M2, or the Serbian M2, depending on what year they're produced in. Oh, you got a Yugoslavian M1, yes, they cool. The M1 or the MC one? The M1's the one that's got the nose cup in, the MC one doesn't have the nose cup, apparently. Optical masks are all for people using, like, scopes and things like that, or artillery crews or whatever. The idea being that you can look through optics. Because if you have, like, say with some of those gas masks up there, you can see, like, the one... Notice how that Chinese mask next to the GP5M, although they're in a similar position, the lenses look forwards on the Chinese mask, but they don't on the GP5M. That's because it's an optical mask. So basically, on that mask, you can look through binoculars or optics or whatever. You can't using a GP5 because the lenses are at the wrong angle. Yeah, you have to let me know, Maxi Boy, if your M1 ever melts, because apparently a lot of people have reported that they've had M1 masks that have melted. But my one's never melted, but I don't keep it in the sunlight or anything like that. But it'd be interesting to find out if you have any problems with the rubber on it. Well, as in Czechoslovakian M10's not very good because it's a cheek filter mask. The actual quality of the rubber and everything and the straps on the M10 is pretty good. The issue is it's just a really bad cheek filter design. And, you know, it's got all the flaws something like the M17 has, but the M10 feels a bit worse, I think, because the rubber's not quite as good as the M17. So, you know. When you say my dad's melted, I hope you mean your dad's mask melted, not your dad himself actually melted. Great outdoors. If I get a spare one, then yeah, I'll see if I can get one to melt, but I think it's just like some of them have a weird chemical reaction over time. Right, my best mask is my Avon CT12, as you can see if you look below. My worst mask is probably my Hungarian, whatever the number of it is, but the Hungarian civil defence mask from the Cold War, just because it's, I've got the largest size and it doesn't even fit me. And it's got like no proper seal to it. It looks cool though, can't fault the way it looks. It's just a really impractical mask. Well, I've not read into any of that stuff, but I assume it's hysteria, because that's been going on for decades, hasn't it? Certain phone signals will melt your brain. As far as I'm aware, unless you're actually stood up on a really powerful antenna mast in person, you're at no risk. Yeah, M76, that's probably the one, T55, because I always get them confused with the Swiss masks, like the M73s or whatever they are, because I keep thinking which one's which without actually looking them up. I've already showed a video of that, Jacob. If you watch the video, you need to either put rubber O-rings in the GP5's filter intake bit on the mask. That way it basically seals tighter to a NATO filter. Or you can get something like a Chinese normalised hose, where one end of the hose will screw into the GP5 and then you can put a NATO filter on the other end. Yeah. If you want one, mate, you can order one. If you look below, there's a Teespring link. The mugs are on there. And I obviously get a little bit of money every time somebody buys any of the merchandise on the My Teespring store. There's a GP5 design as well that's an actual drawn one. Because one of my friends is an artist, so he did the drawing. The MC1, because the MC1 actually, you know, doesn't have loads of quality control problems. Whereas the GSR in my backpack, that has had lots of quality control issues, you know, with lots of them that were issued not working, you know, ones that were falling apart, all the things like that. So as much as it might sound like people are going, oh no, you can't be telling the truth when you say that, no, I would legitimately prefer an MC1, or pretty much any standard 40mm mask. On eBay, loads on eBay. Sometimes just if you search British gas mask or something like that, you can find S10s that aren't labelled as S10s. I had a look earlier and there are several S10s on bids at the moment, with only bids of like £5 or £10 on them, for anybody that says, oh, you can't get them for under 60 quid or whatever. Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's also right at the top of the video description, and there's generally a Teespring shelf, or whatever they call it, that sits below most videos as well. S6s are easy to find in the UK, I don't know about elsewhere. I don't have either of those masks. If you want to know if I've got a mask, search the name of the mask into my channel. If you get video results up, I've got the mask. If you don't, I don't have the mask. That's the easiest way to do it. Because if I get a mask, I make videos on it. I don't get a mask and then just pretend I don't have it. Right, 29 likes. That's pretty good. Although we did have 30 odd viewers at some point, so I don't know why we didn't get to 30 odd likes, but I assume I don't think they can get into the tin can unless they actually eat the way through the tin can, and then it'll be obvious. Well, there's no point, because this is my recognisable YouTube name, isn't it? That's like brand suicide if you change your YouTube name once it's established. I've got a bit of Russian camo, but I don't, and obviously like the gas masks and things like that, as you can see. But I don't have any Russian combat vests or anything like that. The problem with a lot of modern Russian gear is simply that people charge outrageous prices to post it from Russia. They like want £30 to £50 shipping on basically everything, which I'm not going to pay. Yeah, but it's also, I think, the world's rarest mask, isn't it? Because there's only like 3 of them known in existence. It's a very small number. There's I think there's 2 in private collections and 1 in a military museum somewhere. Again, it depends if it's a pet one or a pest one. Mustard gas and blister agents supposedly degrade filters very quickly. Also, things like tear gas clog the particle filters up on filters very quickly. But I have no idea, because a lot of that's going to probably be quite classified military information about what chemicals eat into CBRN filters faster than others. I got a GSR for like £70 to £80, but that was in about 2011 or whatever, when 2011 or 2012, when, you know, like they were first coming onto the surplus market. I've done videos on cleaning the GP5. You clean it the same way as any other mask. Just use soapy water and a cloth. I don't think I have any, to be honest, in buying a mask. I mean, there's a couple of masks where if I bought one, you know, I wish I bought a different size, but that's about it. I buy them to collect them, not necessarily to use them, so it doesn't matter too much to me. It's hard to say, Antonio. I've done videos going over a lot of this stuff, but it depends which point you consider it a collection rather than just having one or two masks. But I say at least going back 10 plus years. But I made this YouTube channel in 2012, I think it was. In about May 2012. You on about the Bokken? You on about the katana? You on about the French riot armor vest? Don't know. Just saying huge brown thing doesn't really explain much. Yeah, it's a French riot vest, as in, you know, used in riots. So it's like a riot policeman vest. So it's designed to protect your arms from people breaking them with like bats and things. You can't get cheap CBRN filters, not ones that are in date, because if they're in date, they're not going to be cheap. They're not surplus. As I've said quite a few times, the cheapest way you're going to get in-date filters is to buy them as RD40 filters, like industrial filters, not buying them as surplus filters, because if they're surplus, they're not actually in date anymore. Oh, it's not the legs, is it? It's the arms. I mean, you could have a similar setup on your legs of shin pads and things, but that's for the arms and the shoulders, not for the legs. It depends what the aerosol consists of. If it's particulates, then it's stopped by the particle layer. If it's a vapour, it's stopped by the charcoal layer. It depends what's in the aerosol, really, or how fine an aerosol it is. As in the era I'm most interested in, probably the Cold War. As far as I'm aware, they're all the original designs, yeah. But I mean, the only one that actually had a decent amount of clones made of it was the M17, with all the Warsaw Pact copies and the XM27. Yeah, but the World War II baby mask isn't one that you'd put on a baby and the baby would walk around. It's like a crib that you'd put the baby in and then pump air into. Probably painkillers, I imagine, Iron Man Spartan, because you can't buy things like, what's the word I'm looking for? Antibiotics. You can't buy them over the counter, can you? So, probably just painkillers and maybe things for like indigestion or like heartburn. Because I imagine if people are having to eat a crap diet after some sort of event, they're probably going to be getting a lot of sort of, you know, stomach pains. Yeah, I don't think leg armour is going to be very concealable, is it? That's the problem. You've asked that before, Antonio. We gave you an answer last time. Why do you need the answer again? It was a German filter used from, I assume, 1968 onwards. You know, by Germany, as a civil defence filter, as the name implies. And obviously it's an out-of-date filter now that's no longer used. Personally, I wouldn't really use it if you get those from like 1960 to 1980. Don't know what you mean by that, going under the description to find comments. Unless you mean the FAQ, but I might take the FAQ thing now about audio streams out now, because I haven't done an audio stream in ages. Then I might as well just always do a webcam stream now, so yeah, we'll take that bit out of the description. I'd say the PBF is the best cheek filter mask, then the M17, then maybe a Polish MP4B, then maybe a Polish MP4, then an M10M, then an M10, then a Bulgarian PDE1. The XM28 is kind of a different class of mask, so you can't really class it with the M17 in terms of, you know, because it's not a CBRN mask, the XM28. Well, as long as you know how to tighten it to your face, check it's pressurised, not really. Alright, see you Iron Man Spartan. Have fun. Hello Marco. Well, it's probably evening now because it's 8:30, but... Yeah, I did just get rid of some Lone Star, which I think was slightly dodgy, especially where you had some people asking very strange questions over and over again in a row. Generally, that's a bit of a red flag for me. If you get, you know, if you get somebody ask one thing on its own, it might be innocent enough, but if you get the same user making lots and lots of very similar strange questions, it generally, to me, strikes, you know, as, What country are you in, Slavic? Oh, you're going off, never mind. Because otherwise I could probably help find you an S10. Again, part of the problem is when people say to me, does this mask ship to my country? Or whatever. There's no way I can know unless you say where you are, and then I still probably wouldn't know, but you know. Yeah, well, I answered your question about 6 days, so I wouldn't be able to tell you what the gas mask was in it, would I, Aaron, if I hadn't seen 6 days? The vest I'm wearing, it's the British Army Mark IV Osprey armour, and I've got the plates in it. What I want to do is see if I can wear it for an entire stream without getting too uncomfortable. Because some people have said you can't wear these sort of vests for long at all, you know, without feeling really uncomfortable. So, it's got the front and back Kevlar panel in it. I've got a wooden chopping board in the moment to simulate like the size and weight of you know, an actual hard plate, like a trauma plate. But if at some point I get a trauma plate, obviously I'll put that in instead. I haven't done a test on the Puma camo yet, no. There's loads of camos I've got that I haven't got around to doing tests on, because the problem is when I do a camo test video, I have to get somebody else to go out with me and take photos and things like that. So that can be a bit of a ball ache, because you have to sort out a day when you and somebody else are free to do it. You know, and then you have to have like the right sort of weather for it and everything. Nah, I've already said about this quite a few times, Ryan. I have no interest in getting actual uniforms other than camo stuff, because I don't like the whole stolen valor type stuff. Well, that's not a huge shoulder pocket, it's just attached to the vest there. It's one of the generic things for it, but because this is one of these vests, you can put these wherever you want. So you can just put whatever you want in here, look. So, you know, it's got the waterproofing in it as well, it's quite good, but, you know, you could put whatever you wanted in there. Or you could just, you know, take it off completely. Yeah, I've got a sports shirt on at the moment. It's one of those ones that's like part polyester, part spandex. They're really comfortable. But yeah, it's one of those exact shirts. But yeah, if I take this one off for now, it will be a bit... hang on. I need to get the second thing off. So yeah, they're all held on via these kind of straps, whatever they call these straps. Alice straps, Molly straps, something like that. Although they are quite tight to actually get out, even when you want to get them out. This one just does not want to move. Supposedly, as a level 4 plate is meant to be able to stop a 7.62 NATO round, I imagine it would stop an old bolt action rifle round. I don't know about 30-06, but it would definitely stop things like a Lee Enfield round, because they have less power than 7.62 NATO. I don't know which filter you mean by C7 filter without looking it up. Is it a 60mm filter? If so, it will fit a C3. If it's not 60mm filter, then no. Just seeing it. This is really awkward to get this strap on. Come on. Don't know if I can actually get this one off without... I used to play piano, haven't played it in ages. Never took any gradings or anything like that, but did GCSE music and passed that with a B, A star for composing, and then, like everybody else, the listening exam is where you lose all your marks, so then I rounded off on a B. Don't think I can get this bloody one out. Yeah, it is, but there's not much you can do about that, Mike, because the popper is... the gap between the strap and the poppers aren't very big. Well, I don't know. If you can't see any at the moment for less than £40, you can't get one for less than £40, can you? Simple. I don't get what you mean with that. Where you're saying put one strap in the vest and one not, that doesn't make any sense. There we go, that's that one finally out. Right, that's that out the way. Yep, don't forget to like everybody, after I struggled for ages trying to get that out of the bloody shoulder bit. Let's have a look at the current amount of likes to dislikes and everything else. Oh, I get it. Yeah, so like in, out, yeah. Makes sense. Don't know where this is going, Alex. I'm sure it's a legit thing, but just a bit strange when somebody comes on and starts talking about sticky substances. Oh, 41 likes, 100% like ratio, that's pretty good. Right, I'm not going to bother putting this one back onto the vest for a bit. I will just stand here for a moment. 44 likes, yeah, very good. But yeah, I'm going to see if I can keep this on for the entire 2-hour stream. I shouldn't think it'd be too hard. Well, on this bit here, on my there's on my left bit there's a mount. On the right one there. On this one though, I've got the GSR satchel also attached to that mount. Because basically, what I've done is I've got the GSR going through like the molly straps, but I've also got it attached with one of the straps to this bit, just so it's a bit more secure and it doesn't move around as much. Yeah, 33 people on, that's pretty good. Well, I've barely used the katana, to be honest, because I've not had much to do cutting tests with. But yeah, obviously, the more you use a bokken, the better you're going to get with a katana, because it's essentially the exact same weight and size. But I actually get a lot more use out of the bokken, because you can hit things with it you don't want to chop to pieces. You know, like your mates. Unless you get a massive repair kit for a GP5 that has 100 of those valves, then you're probably not going to get any Alex, unless hardware stores happen to have something around the right size. Because Soviet masks weren't really designed to be repaired, they just mass produced them. The idea was if it gets a breakage, it's thrown away and you get a brand new mask, really. It depends. Some of the attachments for the CT12 and FM12 are the same as the S10. Some of them are different sizes. So the microphone input that you can put on the side, that's the exact same. And that fits on the CT12, FM12 and S10. The outserts, that's going to be different, because the outserts are a different size. B-Store sent me a kit once, and I think he sells them. But if you're in the US, I don't know if he ships to the US, or I don't know if then the postage would be really expensive. But it's, you know, like a big pouch thing that has loads of different types of valves and eyepieces in and whatever, that was for all the Soviet masks. That katana was from Blades and Bows, Peach. It was about £40, but that was even before their closing down sale. I think they've completely run out of stock of that. Oh, an important thing to mention to anybody who might want one. Somebody said to me earlier, and I checked it out, and the the Armex whatever Tomcat 2s are back in stock in Blades and Bows for £25. I don't know if I'll bother getting one now, because obviously I'd have to pay the postage, and it means I'd have to find even more stuff to put along with it if I didn't want to get just that, because I would have got one, you know, the other week when I bought a load of stuff from Blades and Bows, but then they didn't have that in at the time. But if there is anybody who wants a Tomcat 2, they are back in stock again. Probably thousands, Marco, but impossible to say. I really don't know. Yeah, thanks, Alexander. This is that British Army one I showed before, but it's actually got Kevlar panels and plates in. They call them a voice trumpet, I think, or I think the official Avon name for them is something like primary speech module, something like that. But the S6 doesn't have that voice diaphragm, it has a different one. The S6 has a very, very basic voice diaphragm. The S10 and FM12, they're a different size one, but they're essentially the thing. But if you actually, that's just the cover, the thing that's the bit you're thinking of. If you take the cover off, it's completely different. It's just like a plastic tube with a valve in it. Yeah, I like the cold steel Gladius. I keep mine behind my bed, but yeah, it's a good thing. The only issue with mine was it came really, really sharp, and then the edges got dull really quickly, and I couldn't ever get them properly sharp again. I might try sharpening it now I bought the sharpening tool for the bill hook, because I imagine that might sharpen it a bit better. Not really, Alex, because I don't know if I've actually got the spare eyepieces for it. But you uncrimp the metal, you take the bit out, put a spare one. There's other channels on YouTube that have done the videos, so you might as well just watch those. Well, in theory you can get the prescription inserts for them, but it's whether or not anyone sells them properly in big numbers, I don't know. Because like all that stuff, it exists for the military, but whether or not that's in the surplus market in any big numbers, I don't know. That's right, Peach. I've got the stuff. Like I said, I've got all the tools here. It's just, most of my things I'm fine with sharpening. It's just for whatever reason with the Gladius I got, I think they put the grind slightly wrong on the edges. So it meant it was really razor sharp to begin with, but then it got, you know, like some of the edges slightly bent on impacts. But yeah, if you can find the optical inserts you need for a Finish M95, and you can find a Finish M95 at decent prices, get the M95, it might be more suited for you. But yeah, the problem with like the optical inserts is, as I said, because even though I wear glasses, I've never been able to find my prescription in inserts. I found like other types of prescription inserts for certain masks, but I've never found ones that match my eyes for the thing. Especially because each of my eyes has a slightly different focus. Like my left eye is a little bit better than my right eye. So with my glasses, the left lens is, you know, like weaker than the right lens in a sense. So it means that's another problem I found when I've looked at lots of the sets of inserts. They've been always the exact same prescription on each lens, which wouldn't really work for me. I'd rather just not have the glasses in, otherwise I think I'd get a headache really fast if that was the case. Never mind, Great Outdoors, I hope you enjoyed the mask. Which one did you get? The 4A1 or the M15? Was it the 4A1 you said you were getting? How do you know a GP5's got its eyepiece upside down? Is it just where like the little metal thing is that's in the corners of each? Because they have like a little metal diagonal slot, don't they? Is that the thing you mean? Is that how you can tell it's upside down? Ken Onion Workshop. Let me have a look at that. Oh, one of those things. Cool. Yeah, I've seen those little sort of desk sharpeners that are like mini kind of grind wheels. But yeah, they might be good. Like I said, the thing I bought to sharpen the bill hook, because the bill hook's like one of the things you can't really do with any conventional knife sharpener. That thing I bought for that's really good. It's like a file, but it's a different roughness on each side, so you get it. You get the file to the angle of the blade, which is really easy if you've got a file, and then you just, you know, do that up and down with it. It's going to look like I'm gesturing having a wank on a stream now, isn't it? But you know, that's the thing you do. You get your file, and then you set it to the thing, set it to the angle, and that's really easy to do because you literally just lean it against the blade to set the angle. Pull it up and down a few times, work along the blade, and then you've got it really razor sharp again. So I've been able to keep the bill hook I bought from Richard really sharp using the tool I got, and I'm normally not that good at keeping blades sharp other than like little knives. No, you're missing the point, Beeben. The point is that inside the GP5 circular eyepiece there's a bit that isn't a circle. There's a bit of it that's like, you know, like a line. So if you have a circle and one side of the circle's got a little bit on it, you'll know if the circle's not consistent, won't you, across both? Yeah, so you're doing a similar thing to what I do then, but you're just using a file, not the specific tool I bought. But yeah, it works like a file. I don't know if the mask works, it works, but I think it's just probably if you're a bit, you know, annoyed about things like that. If you've got like a GP5 or a mask where, you know, it would annoy me though if I had a mask and one lens has a thing at one angle and the other lens is at a totally different angle. Oh, speaking of that, somebody, there was a thread where people were arguing about katanas I saw earlier. I didn't read much of it because, you know, it's where people have no idea what they're talking about in most of these kind of forum threads. But it was where somebody said they'd played that game and then they bought a katana, but then they bought a really expensive but crap katana. They'd spent like nearly $300 on the katana that was, you know, you could tell it was really badly put together. Like, you know, that £40 one I've got there was way better than the one they bought. But then it turned into an entire forum thread of people arguing about katanas and whether or not they were good swords, you know, and then about steel tempering, and it was one of those threads I imagine Richard would find quite funny, because he actually really knows all about that stuff. And even me not being an expert at all on steel tempering and, you know, metal folding and swords, you could tell these people had no idea what they were talking about when they were arguing with each other, and they were just, you know, trying to shout louder and louder than each other like most of these forum threads do. Well, the one he bought was definitely a live blade, but how good the tang and everything was, I don't know. But it was one where you could tell, you know, when he had the pictures of it out of the sheath, that it had like that really cheap acid etch done on it to give the illusion of folded steel when it didn't have folded steel. It was that kind of thing. And what would you do with all 50 of your GP5 masks? Just going to have a current look at the views and likes and everything, see how we're getting on for that. Oh, we've still got a 100% like ratio, that's unusual, but I'm not going to complain. 51 likes, 181 views, 25 live viewers. There's no such thing as a prop GP5 gas mask filter, but you can do what I've suggested in the video before, which is buy those Chinese refillable filters, take the screw bit off, just pour the entire contents of the filter in a bin, put the cap back on it, and then just like do whatever you want, put some stickers around the outside, paint it or whatever, and then you've got an completely empty shell of a filter that you can breathe through really easily. Cool. Which particular filter was that? Was that Polish FP5 filters you bought, or was it just one of the like RD40 kind of industrial filters, like in ABEC or whatever? I assume you can get them in America because you can normally buy them from China and they ship worldwide. What's that in pounds sterling? Is that like £1 or £2, 50 rubles? But yeah, most masks in their country of origin are very cheap. What are you on about, mechanised and weaponised? Are you on about my vest, the plate carrier? I reckon the Roman Centurion would win. Just because the armour and arms of the Romans was a bit better than the Japanese. Oh, that's an interesting idea, TechStorm. I think it would just be easy though if they had a little switch, where if you're taking a filter off, you could just push a switch on the side of the mask. That would seal the valve. You could take the filter off, and then when you put the new filter on, you just push the switch the other direction again. PBFs in the UK are normally £20 to £30. They might be even cheaper if you buy them not in a complete kit. Yeah, oh yeah, just where you look on eBay or Amazon or hardware stores and get the RD40 filters, yeah. Because that way, yeah, you're buying something that's brand new as opposed to being years out of date. I think I showed this in a previous video, but this is the first time I've showed it in a stream where I've got all the stuff in it. Let me show you. Tell you what, let me just move the webcam slightly. I'm just going to move the webcam this way. And if I do that, it means I can... just trying to work out where would be a good angle to put it. Let's try it there. Right, so yeah, if I stand up now, basically, this is the first time I've used it with actual stuff in it. So I bought a British Armed Police, or like regular British Police, level 2 Kevlar, like, you know, the, what do they call them? It's the US system. Is it Department of Justice or something they call it? It's a level 2 rated front and back Kevlar panel, but both have spike and stab protection up to 25 joules, or exceeding 25 joules, whatever it is. If it's a new filter and it's sealed properly and it's got quite a few years on the date, Lone Star, I'd think that'd be worth it. But if it's, you know, like expiring anytime soon, or it's expired, don't pay much for a filter at all. That's cool, mate. Is there any particularly really interesting masks you've got? So yeah, it's got the rear panel in it. That fit perfectly. It's got the front panel in it. And then I've got in the plate carrier slot in the front a wooden chopping board just to simulate the size and weight at the moment of having a real panel in it. But as and when I spot an actual ballistic plate or whatever, or some sort of reinforcement panel for a sensible price, I'll buy one and fit it. Yes, real Kevlar in here. I bought a front and back US manufactured Kevlar and spike protection panel, and then fit them into the vest. Look, I'll show you actually. It means I'll have to take the vest off, but let me just take my glasses off again so I don't damage them if I smash the vest into it. Right, okay, so let's see if I can get this on the frame. Give me a moment. Alright, I'll pull the webcam a bit more this way again. Should hopefully get me in frame properly. Right, so on this bit you've got like a flap. If I hold it at this angle, hopefully it will be visible. So what you do obviously is find the zip. There it is. Unzip that, and then if you look inside, if that's visible now, turn it that way, it will be. You've got the Kevlar there, and then behind the Kevlar is the plate carrier slot. See that there? I might need to put the webcam down ever so slightly. Let's just do that. And let's pull the webcam. Which direction do I need to go in? Actually, I'll tell you what, I'll make the disclaimer ever so slightly smaller. Right, that should still be readable for the disclaimer, but you should be able to see better. So then, as you can see, in the plate carrier slot, I've got a thick wooden chopping board. So then that goes in the bit you'd normally have the plates in. So let me just, yeah, oh, it's got to slip off now. Right. So that's in that section. Then you'd have the Kevlar in front of that on the bit that says side towards body. And then let me just zip this back up. If I put it down like that, I'm not showing it on the camera, I can at least get that in a bit straighter. You might still be able to see what I'm doing there, I'm not sure, but yeah, you can't really. There you go, then that's the panel back in. Right, let me just pop the camera back into the position it was in originally. Then I'll put my glasses back on, I'll be able to read the chat again. There we go. Right. Alright, cheers Lone Star Patriot. For some reason a lot of people seem to hate me on here, I have no idea why, but I'm glad you enjoy the videos anyway. But they've never given me a good reason for not liking me. It's always, Moan, moan, moan. Yep, GP7 over there with the riot armour. Let me just sit back down. That way, otherwise I'm blocking too much of the frame, aren't I, if I'm not sat down. Then we'll get the camera back in position. Just down ever so slightly more. There we go. Right, and that's back in position. It could very much be that Lone Star, but it's just, I find it really sad, you know, when you get people taking the piss out of you non-stop. You say anything back at all, then they get really, really angry, and they're like, oh, we have to deplatform him, we have to get him banned, we have to say to the police he's a terrorist, you know. There's a rapier in the very back. I'll get that one out. That's a fairly cheap rapier, it's not a particularly high quality one, it's just a John Barnett one. It's just balanced up on there. Grab that. Oh, I'm not intentionally wearing the MTP trousers with the MTP carrier, by the way. It's just I put these on after I finished volunteering today because they didn't need a belt on them. But there you go. That'd be a good thumbnail, wouldn't it? But I bet this won't be the Now, just be very careful with this because it's quite long. But yeah, it's a military style rapier. But as it's a cheap one, although it's made well enough that it's sturdy, it's quite heavy. So it's about 300-400 grams more than you'd expect a rapier to be. But it's durable enough and everything. I can't really fault it in terms of how it's built. Yep, a lot of rapiers though did have hilts like this, what you'd call basket hilts, just because a hilt like this is pretty good at protecting the hand. Some of them had really ornate hilts. This one isn't really ornate, it's just I suppose you could say it's slightly gothic, couldn't you? But yeah, if you want some idea of the size of this rapier, if I hold it like that, it's fairly long, as you can see. Gives your forearms a good workout as well, having a sword this long. Right, let's chuck him back in the scabbard. I'll probably oil it up later before I put it back away. Depends how you mean on like medieval stuff, because I don't know what I could go over. I mean, I've gone over medieval weapons, I'm pretty sure, before. Yeah, exactly, Rich. You can't tell, can you, when a bow's in the background like that? Let me just, sorry, move the camera a little bit more this way again. You really can't tell when you've got a bow in the background like that how thick the limbs are going to be. And here's the thing. My higher draw weight bow from here looks like it has smaller limbs than that bow, but it doesn't, because it's a trick of the camera angle. See you, B-Ben. But yeah, once I, this was a silly thing, Richard, once I called that guy out on that, for, you know, just making a load of stuff up he obviously didn't know, people were saying, oh, we need to get him banned from YouTube now, because he's calling out a really nice guy. Well, if he was a really nice guy, he wouldn't be taking the piss out of people behind their backs, would he? Let's not ask anything, Alexander, which could be considered illegal. As I said, you know, see that thing in the bottom of the screen. Probably around 100 masks, but I've lost count and I don't actually have them on you know, a spreadsheet anymore, or like a Word file, because at one point I had them all on like a Microsoft Office Word file, where I had them sort of listed by production date and nation. And then when Windows 10 fucked up my PC and I had to, like, you know, format the hard drives again and go back to Windows 7, I lost the file because I didn't have a backup of it, because it's not really worth anything. It's just, you know, a convenient Word document. So yeah, that I don't actually know the exact number without counting them all up, but I'd assume around 100. Some of those are duplicates though, because I've got like several GP5s, you know, like several GP5Ms, several S10s. But if you remove the duplicates, I assume it'd be 80 odd individual masks, and then there's just some masks I've got 2 or 3 of the same mask where I've bought them really cheap, or they've been sold to me in like multiple bundles. Wow, it's not a good idea to talk about things that you might theoretically do, Alexander, because in that case it could be considered premeditated, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't have a tomahawk. What I do have up there, you can probably see it behind the Lee Enfield, where the bolt is on the Lee Enfield. There's a kind of like a Viking war axe reproduction. So it's a bit bigger than a tomahawk, but it's that kind of style of war axe, and that's pretty good because you could throw that, or it, you know, chops pretty well. I just buy filters that are, you know, like fit all the qualifications and are reasonably priced, so I don't really have a favourite filter. Yeah, self-defense situation. I do quite like a lot of Sam Hyde's videos. SHMS is my favourite Soviet mask, just because it's the most versatile in my opinion. I don't know if you've seen it, Lone Star, but I'll show you my favourite sword, because it's one I actually had commissioned. So I paid about £450 for this. So I paid quite a lot for it, but it's one exactly as I wanted it. It's an English falchion. So it's a 22-inch blade, and it's basically a lightweight infantry sword. Also, these were sometimes called back swords or hanger swords. And basically they're kind of like proto-sabres, but the idea of this is it's a very easy to manoeuvre sword. It's got a fighting handguard on it. So basically it's got the handguard that you could obviously punch with and then hit them with the guard, or use the pommel on it, a bit like, you know, sort of some of the trench weapons, like the trench knives and all those sort of trench clubs where they had all the various bits on. But the nice thing of a falchion is that you can obviously manoeuvre it very easily to swing it, and you can thrust. But yeah, the falchion's probably definitely my favourite of all my swords and things, just because it was one I commissioned. Because I was looking on lots of places where they sold like the like windlass style ones and all the other brands, and none of them did a falchion quite like how I wanted one. Like, you know, the handguard like I wanted, and the blade type I wanted. The problem with some falchions is they seem to have these really oversized fantasy curved blades, and while there might have been falchions that actually look like that, the problem is lots of the ones in medieval Western Europe weren't like that. They were more, you know, refined swords than that. So, you know, I didn't want ones that looked like a scimitar, you know, like a fantasy image of a scimitar. So yeah, I ended up spending a lot on it, but it means it's like the perfect size for my height as well, because a 22-inch blade is pretty good if you're under 6 foot. Because if you're over 6 foot, you can probably work with a longer blade, but when you're shorter, you don't want anything that's too long, especially if it's hanging off your bout, because you might be able to see there that, let's not fall over with this, if you have something, and I'll get away from the disclaimer so you can actually see, if you've had something on your bout of this size, you know, you don't want anything really going much below your knee, and at least for me this doesn't, because it's 22-inch blade, whereas if I had like a 30 to 40-inch bladed sword, it would just be simply too long for me. I'd have to have it in a different kind of holster. Well, not holster, but you know, scabbard. You'd probably recognise this scabbard though, Peach, if you're still on, because I've got the I use my Cold Steel Gladius holster for the actual sheath for the falchion, because it fits fairly well into it. Yeah, there's very much a thing, isn't there, where you can disassociate some of the sort of interesting historical values from you know, like some of the regimes that use them. Like, the thing is that this is one of the things that really annoys me, and it's why I get a lot of trolls and stuff on my videos, and just people that are a bit ignorant, basically, I've said before I hate communism, obviously because of the massive human rights. I don't want to get too political, obviously, see political disclaimer. But I hate communism, you know, because of the historical, you know, awful human rights abuses of the communist governments, and the fact there was probably over 100 million people murdered by communist governments during the 20th century. You know, so averaging over 1 million people per year, which, you know, is completely shocking and awful and kind of mind-numbingly crazy when you think about those sort of numbers. But I find a lot of the stuff interesting, but apparently, you know, because communism is so popular with kids today, I guess, that haven't really read any history books, I guess because it sounds good on paper, they hate you for that reason. You know, and I could completely understand people saying, you know, they've got proper gripes of capitalism, you know, where there's people that can't afford healthcare, you know, you get homeless people, you know, there's all that sort of thing. I can completely understand that, but then to suddenly say, well, actually, I've heard of this thing called communism and it's brilliant, we should just try that and that would fix all our problems. It really wouldn't. Oh, this is the thing, Kiki, is if you're on here and you're polite enough, it doesn't bother me. You can have those opinions and it doesn't matter. My point is that there's people that hate me just because I've simply explained why I do not like communism as an ideology. Oh yeah, I completely agree with that as well. I'm fairly libertarian political beliefs. Again, we're going too much onto politics and I try and avoid that on these streams, but the whole point is I like the idea of people having individual rights and not the state having the rights over you. Because when people are arguing about left-right kind of dictatorships, well, I think if you've got a jackboot stamping on your head or you're being shot or put in, you know, a concentration camp, does it really matter the political leanings of the dictatorship that's doing it to you? Probably not. You know, again, I don't want to go too much into all that in the stream. I try and avoid talking about politics, but you know, that's just my thoughts on it. I like the idea of individual liberties, not you know, not the state having the power of life and death over its subjects, especially when states are so corruptible. Or even if they had the best intentions in mind and they were just completely incompetent, they could still manage to kill you that way. Okay, it's cool. Is that one of those, like, intermediate cartridges, mechanised and weaponised? Well, I already said my favourite Soviet mask is the SHMS or SHMS. But I'd say the, what was I going to say? Out of the Warsaw Pact masks, so not necessarily Russian, but, you know, the satellite states. Either I'd say the Polish MC1, the Czech CM3 or the Czech CM4. Yeah, it would be good, wouldn't it, if there was just some country you could emigrate to if you actually believed with the kind of ideas of civil liberties rather than big government. But sadly, I don't think people base countries on stuff like that anymore, like the US was founded on. Because that was obviously the whole reason for the American Revolution originally, was they didn't want to be paying very expensive taxes to the king. But now I think there's still very expensive taxes paid in the US, isn't there? And lots of liberties, sadly. I don't know. There was the SHMS 41 wasn't the first SHMS. Basically, there was one before it, which I don't know if it had a number or if it was just called the SHMS. That one was the one that came about at the end of World War II, and it didn't have Tissot tubes, as far as I'm aware. The mass-produced one, the 41, is the famous one, and that's the one that had the Tissot tubes in. The GP5 is, I think, the SHM62. And that is basically the same as the 41, but with less metal parts. You know, it's basically a cheapened 41 for mass production. I've done a video, if you're interested, on that, where I go through all of them and show some of the differences between that entire series of masks. Yeah, but it's not just the case in America. The thing is, I try and make the argument to a lot of people, Lone Star, and a lot of them laugh at you because they're like, oh, limeys, you know, they don't have any guns, blah, 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 isn't it great, I live in America. I try and say to people who are in the US who are viewing my videos is you should take note what happens in the UK with a lot of the, you know, policies where stuff gets taken away from us. And then realise that if you're not vigilant with who you vote for and stuff like that in the US, you'll probably lose the same liberties. Because there's lots of things where I see it in the US where they say, oh, we only want to ban, you know, semi-automatic firearms, or we only want to ban certain magazine sizes, you know, and this, that, and the other, and you think this is just a creeping thing, isn't it? Where you get further down that road, and then it's, why should anyone own a gun? Why does it, you know, it's all that kind of thing. It's like in the UK now, where they're saying, oh, but nobody needs something that's not a kitchen knife. Like I was using this knife today when I was volunteering. Very practical for what I was doing. So I had a field test this Ganzo today with the lock on it. So it's much safer for me using it because it's got a lock on it. But there's lots of people in the UK that think we shouldn't be allowed knives like this, and lots of politicians that think we shouldn't be allowed knives like this. Because apparently, you know, they're better at stabbing people even though they're not. But, you know, it's that kind of thing. If you're not vigilant enough, you know, and make sure you're opposing very restrictive laws, I think they can very quickly happen to you. Which is why I don't like it when people in America laugh at us in Britain, but don't do anything about, you know, the changes in the laws over there. Because otherwise they're just going to end up like us a bit further down the road. The Chinese M65, Alex. Do you mean the one with the massive cheek filter? If so, apparently that's one of the worst cheek filter masks ever designed. Because apparently you can't replace the cheek filter, and often by the time troops got the mask, the cheek filter had already expired. I don't even know about the gas tax in California, but it sounds like we're getting very political now if we're talking about taxation laws somewhere. You know, that's not something I want to really get into. As I said, these streams are more fun when we chat about general military surplus or whatever, rather than, I reckon at least 2 or 3 sealed filters. Because the thing is, if you've got filters that are meant to last like 12 to 24 hours, as long as you're using a mask for evacuation, that should be enough, you know. Because the idea is you put your mask on to get out of an area, you're not keeping a mask on to stay in an area. I have to say, this plate carrier is more comfortable than I thought it would be. Obviously, if I replace the wood chopping board with an actual trauma plate, it might be a little bit heavier, but this isn't overly unmanageable in terms of weight. I know I'm sitting down, but still. You know, I'm used to having stuff that's way more uncomfortable with weight distribution. I know I've not got magazines full of ammunition and stuff like that in it either, but... Yeah, if you can watch the video back at a later point, Lone Star, but most of my point was just that there's a lot of people in America that make fun of us in Britain for how, you know, restrictive our freedoms are now, and what a nanny state we've become. But unless people in America actually are vigilant over their own politicians and things like that, I think it could turn out the same way. So I think rather than laughing at people in Britain like a lot of them do, they would actually be better, you know, paying attention to what's going on in their own country. Because it's all very good to laugh at Britain and go, oh, have you got a license for that? You got a license for that? But if they don't watch out, I think in certain US states, they could certainly get to the stage soon where lots of the same things are banned. US military surplus is cool, but sadly I can't get a lot of US surplus easily, because US surplus is export banned by the US. So you can only get it when it actually has turned up outside of the US, or it's smuggled out essentially. In the remake, yes. Although in the remake, the exhale valve is on that side and the filter's below, isn't it? But in the original, it's an Acme mask. But yeah, the GP7 is the mask in the remake of My Bloody Valentine. Yeah, again, if you're carrying it with all the rest of the gear, Mike, on a hot day, on, you know, having to march or walk for miles and miles, then I imagine it does get uncomfortable. What I'm saying is it's a lot more comfortable than I was imagining it to be from all the horror stories I've heard about plate carriers. But then I suppose this is, you know, a plate carrier that was designed a year or 2 ago. so it's going to be fairly modern. I imagine much earlier gen plate carriers probably didn't have as good weight distribution across them or whatever. Yeah, if you laugh at Britain and you're in Britain, it's a bit different, isn't it? It's just when people laugh in other countries, but their countries are still going down the same route as Britain. It completely depends on the filter and how they're sealed, MLG Pug. If you've got a filter that's foil wrapped and sealed in the bag and it's got plugs in it, it might last 10, 20 plus years. If it's a filter that's just got very simple plugs in the top and bottom, it might last 5 years. It also depends on what's in the filter itself, the size of the filter. There's so many factors. I don't know which suit you're talking about. You won't be able to send me a picture easily because YouTube doesn't let you post links. I've seen one type of Czech NBC suit that literally looks like bin bags, which is quite funny, but I suppose if it works, it works. As in the Claymore sword, I think they're pretty cool. As in like the great sword, like the really big sword somewhere between the long sword and the great sword. Yeah, they're cool. Like the William Wallace sword. Yeah, I know what you mean by reassuring. It feels like you're well protected, doesn't it? And the thing I like with mine as well is, I don't know if all plate carriers are like this, but as this one obviously supports the weight on both the shoulders and it ties up here, you know, it distributes the weight well. Whereas some plate carriers, I assume, are just, you know, you just pull straight over the top. So at least this one, the weight is, you know, supported by both your waist and your shoulders. Yeah, don't forget to like the stream, everybody, thank you. Yeah, that would be good, Alexander, but sadly nobody makes them. There is a 3D printed thing you can get that does that, but again, you'd have to be able to 3D print it, and I don't have a 3D printer, and I don't think many people have a 3D printer, but if you did, you could print one. Yeah, we're still at 100% like ratio, even when I was ranting about communism. I don't know what's going on in this video, but I'm not going to complain. The SHMS is my favourite Soviet gas mask Riley. I used to do judo when I was a lot younger, but I've not done that in years and years. If they're the quick to attach and detach ones, but they're not going to detach on their own, I wouldn't have a problem with them. It's just for where I work and the sort of jobs I do, I need kind of steel watch straps just to stop, you know, stuff getting into them, and so they're easy to clean. Because if you, you know, I don't want to be working in an animal shelter with a leather watch strap or whatever, but a nylon one that you can clean properly would be quite good. No, I do not have any deactivated RPGs or flamethrowers. All the deactivated guns you've seen in my videos before. They're just like the rifles and SMGs. I'm assuming that would be the serial number, yeah, because they only go from size, I think it's 0 to 4, or maybe it's 1 to 4. So if it's 11, it can't be the size. And the production dates would be from the 60s to like maybe the 90s. So yeah, I'm assuming that has to be a serial number or like lot number, something like that, Alex. Casino is very historically accurate. They just changed everybody's names in it. Have you seen the History Buff video on it? Most of the stuff in Casino is historically accurate. They just changed all the names. The Untouchables is pretty historically inaccurate though, isn't it? I do like We Were Soldiers. That's a good film. Does your driving licence then in the US have to be your exact height? They don't even put your height on the UK driving licences. Yeah, I'm very interested in that, Rich, because I was thinking with the glaive and bill hook, it could probably, if you swung it sideways like that, you know, like you properly swung your chest around and your shoulders and your arms, you know, you did like that, I imagine you could get a proper, you know, load of milk jugs of that, assuming that they weigh enough that a lot of them don't just get catapulted off by the glaive. As said, Alexander, please stop talking about things that are probably illegal. Yeah, from what he said on Casino and what I've actually looked up on it, everything is pretty realistic in it. There's a couple of minor things, but all the characters are very realistic to what, you know, happened with the real ones. It's just they changed their names to avoid legal stuff. No, I keep meaning to see Heat because it's a Michael Mann film, isn't it? And I do like Michael Mann films. I really like Manhunter. But Heat's quite a long film, isn't it, in terms of runtime? It's like 3 to 4 hours or something. And it's one of those films that every time I think I'm going to sit down and watch it, I remember what the runtime is, and I realise I've not got enough spare time to watch it in one sitting. So I never get round to it. I've seen the shootout scene from Heat, because that's obviously quite famous. Yep. I like the crazies. I prefer the original to the remake, but you'd have seen if you watched my Blu-ray collection video yesterday that the crazies was in that. I've got on Blu-ray. The name sounds familiar. I've definitely seen Once Upon a Time in the West and Once Upon a Time in America, but I don't know if I've seen Once Upon a Time in Mexico. What's the original Heat film? Oh, LA Takedown is original. So what did Michael Mann do 2 films and then LA Takedown's the older one? It's not been hot yet. It's been getting to the point of being 20 degrees Celsius some days, and today was nice because when I was volunteering it meant I could do it in my like polo shirt without actually needing to put my fleece on for once, or like the coat on top of the fleece. But it's not properly hot yet, but at least I've got an aircon that I shelled out like 300 odd pounds for this year. At least I've got an aircon unit in my bedroom now. So it means when it does get to the 30 to 40 degree days, I'm not going to melt. No idea what that could have been unless I saw a picture of it. I can Google it and see if it turns up, or search it on eBay, but if it doesn't turn up, then I can't really advise you because it's hard from the description. So Soviet pilot mask. All the ones currently turning up are actual like pilot and helicopter masks. I'm not seeing any yet that look like GP5s or anything being passed off as pilot masks. Right, if the one you're on about's a different one, I'm afraid that's not turned up anywhere. But yeah, all the ones that I've just looked up are actual like pilot or helicopter crew or air crew kind of masks. They're actual proper air masks or oxygen masks. Right, cool, I might do that at some point. I'm pretty sure I have watched some videos though on that mechanised and weaponised, just off the top of my head. I can't remember. Oh, we were talking about you earlier, communism. People were arguing whether or not we like you, but I like to keep politics out of the video, so I kept getting distracted even though I didn't want to talk about you. How are you anyway? Person with the username communism, not actual communism. Well, SAS is an actual proper military special forces regiment. SWAT is just a police, like better police kind of anti-terrorist trained thing. So obviously the SAS, but they're not kind of the same thing. What, AKMs, AK-47s? The communists did make a lot of really cool military technology, and that's one of the things I really do like about the Soviet Union. I just didn't like the famines and the gulags and the terrors. No, I haven't heard of canned that. Is it something you cook on your gun or whatever. Because I've seen videos before where somebody's got an MG42. They've put foil on the barrel, then they've put bacon on the barrel. They shoot like a really long burst and it cooks the bacon. They're probably just serial numbers, Alex, or whatever, just like the serial numbers on all sorts of products. Steam refund for what, Titus? You'd have to state which game you want a refund for, but I'm not a developer, am I? You do know that Mao had gulags as well, Kiki, and North Korea had gulags, and Pol Pot killed like 10% of his country, or even more than that, in the, when they started again from the year zero. Pretty much every communist country had gulags and terror camps. I've already got the wristwatch I want, so I'm perfectly happy. I've got my Orient Mako 2. It tells the time very well. Don't want anything else now. I'm happy. Well, this is the problem because people keep bringing up politics. That's why I have the disclaimer where I don't like to talk about politics, because it just upsets people when we could be chatting about stuff we can all get on about. Yeah, they had internment camps, didn't they, for the Japanese and things. I've not watched him. He's the guy who eats all the old MREs, isn't he? Didn't he get food poisoning recently? I know who he is, but I don't think I've ever watched his videos. Yeah, I think we can all agree we like gas masks, don't we? We like gas masks and body armour and milsurp. Can we talk about that? If it's an RPK, it certainly could be used as an assault rifle. It's going to be heavy and like bulkier than the standard assault rifle, but it's still controllable by one person in burst fire. Yeah, I've watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, The Meaning of Life, The Life of Brian, some of the Monty Python TV series before. Right, Riley, if you want to see what the time is, can you see that? Hang on. There we go. Look, time's perfectly visible there. Right, what I want to see is with this pouch that you probably can't quite see in frame there, or you can see the pouch there, I just want to see with my big canteen. I know this isn't a military style one. Oh, yeah, it sort of does. I wouldn't really want to walk around with it in there like that, but I'm pretty sure like the Osprey style. Actually, have I got one in my bedroom? Hang on, let me have a look. Just to get things back on the topic of milsurp. Oh, good, I do. So here's the canteen which you can attach to an S10. You know, like an actual military canteen. What I want to see is, will that fit in one of these pouches? I do have a pouch that these definitely fit in, because when I bought this one it actually came with a camo pouch, you know, for the canteen. I'm just wondering, will it fit in this pouch? I've got quite a few modern gas mask bags, but depends which one you mean, really. But yeah, the one on my back's technically a modern gas mask bag, just clipped onto the back of this carrier. I don't know if there's going to be any way I can open this from like that. I don't know if you can see in there now. See what's inside? If I pull the strap slightly. See, there's a mask in there. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that back up very well now, am I? No, it's on my back. I'm definitely going to be doing some videos of Weapon Collector hopefully this summer. Obviously not in the US, but just going over to where he lives and filming some stuff. It doesn't have plates in at the moment, Baptiste. It's got the Kevlar front and back panel. I bought those and they're in there. And I've got a wooden chopping board in the front plate carrier slot to simulate the weight and size of an actual, you know, like trauma plate. But if I find a trauma plate for like less than £60 on eBay at some point, I'll put one in. I did see a trauma plate for £30 the other day, but it was only a level 3 one, and ideally I'd want a level 4. So I held off on getting it, especially because I'm meant to be buying that glaive from Richard quite soon when he gets that done. So I didn't want to spend any more this month on the plate carrier. I know which one you mean, because it's the one the falchion kind of comes from, doesn't it? I've not used one, but I know what they are. No, I haven't seen that. I think I saw a thing on the YouTube front page for it, like a 2-hour video, and I didn't click on it. But that sounds kind of interesting. Yeah, well, the interesting thing, Lone Star Patriot, is the police vest we have here. I've got the police vest under the riot armour. So the police vest is, you know, if you imagine it's without all the bulky riot armour on, it's just, you know, an actual vest. The UK police vests, they originally prioritised those just as stab-proof vests or stab-resistant vests, and then later on they, you know, made them more like multi-use Kevlar, like, you know, anti-firearm, bullet-resistant and stab-resistant vests. But it's quite interesting that you know, essentially that. Trying to think what I'm going to say. You know, that in the UK, the stab, you know, like the actual police and everything armour has to be done to do both, if that makes sense. That, you know, because I think I was chatting with somebody on my Patreon group about this, who was saying, you know, in the US, most of the stuff is just made to be bullet resistant. You know, they don't even think about like knife resistance. But in the actual, you know, UK, because there's a much greater risk you're going to be stabbed or slashed at rather than shot, most of the stuff has to have, you know, more of a stab thing as a minimum with a bit of bullet resistance on. Well, most of the modern Chinese masks, yeah, all use plastic rather than metal like the Soviet ones did. I like the MC1. I did a video on it recently where I put it in sodium hydroxide for about an hour and it didn't fall apart, so that's good. It's got a British Mark IV Osprey armour vest on with Kevlar panels in it. Oh, it's got a canteen in here as well, just because I wanted to see if the canteen would fit in it, and it does. Is the answer, so I'll take the canteen back out now. No point having it in there. Comes out easier than it went in, at least. If you have an SHMS, they all have Tissot tubes. It's just the Tissot tubes and SHMS go up the side. Mike has a PS4, so he might add you on the PS4 if you ask Weapon Collector, but I don't have a PS4, I play everything on PC. I thought in the Cadets they gave you one of the variants of the L85, like not the actual L85, but I thought they gave you one that was semi-auto only, not actually automatic. But yeah, they are pretty dreadful rifles. The A2 and the A3 are meant to be a lot better, but they still have a lot of inherent faults to like a cheap bullpup design. Do you mean the Chinese M69 mask? The one I've got, yeah. I was pretty lucky to get. Do I have that in this room? Just give me a second. You mean this? I'll put it on briefly for you. I'm not going to obviously put the original Chinese filter on with it. There we go. It's not too comfortable because it's definitely too small a size for me, but yeah, this is basically the Chinese rip-off of a PMG, but it's slightly better than the PMG. That's the M65, I think, Alex. The M69 is this one. And that one there is maybe the M59 or the M60, some other number, I can't remember what it is, that one. Right, let me search that MLG plug. I can't see any coming up that's particularly strange. I can see one that's got like a cold weather facepiece on it, but that's pretty standard for a lot of old flight masks. I can't see any really strange things coming up. In theory, if you can... I'll take the mask off so I can speak to people a bit more clearly on the stream. In theory, if you can cut open the filter and reseal it properly, you can refill it with activated charcoal. The stuff you can buy for aquarium filters isn't going to be as good as factory, like activated charcoal, because it's not impregnated with chromium or anything like that. But yeah, if you can take a filter apart and put it back together again, you can in theory at least replace the charcoal in it. Yeah, the 4A1, I don't have a bottle that works with it. The Polish military bottles actually sort of work with it, but not quite. I'm trying to remember, I think the Polish one works with the 4A1, but not the M15. It's really strange, but I think that's the way. Right, see you, MOG Pug. Thanks for being on the stream for a bit. Well, there's a Chinese refillable filter. The Chinese refillable filter is currently on my PMG2 over there. But they don't actually work because it's too small. If you did that filter on a bigger scale, it would work. But because the Chinese ones have such a small surface volume, the actual bit the charcoal is in is only like this big. So there's not enough surface volume for the charcoal to actually work to block anything. You can't send me links, as I've already said. I don't know why, but the longer the stream goes on, the itchier my nose always seems to get. I reckon it's one of those things, because you know you're on camera, you get an awkward itch that won't go away. I reckon it's in the brain, it's not actually a physical itch. That's what I think. Maybe they just didn't mass produce that mask, or maybe they didn't get exported TechStorm. It's really impossible to say. I think it's probably just that some masks were mass produced more than others, because some nations do strange things where they design certain things but then they never mass produce them. Is that happening with or without the filter on? Because if it's happening with the filter on, it could be you've got a leaking filter. If that's happening without a filter on, it must be that there's just some sort of residue on the mask that you need to get all of it off. What sort of pipe? Do you mean a pipe like, hang on, I think they're still in my drawer. Let me have a look, unless I've got them in. Oh yeah, I've still got one in this drawer. Because you see I quit, but still got. Getting a slight tobacco taste from that. I want to start again, I have to put it back away. Don't tempt me. I've also got cigars in that drawer, which, you know, because I quit, never get smoked, which is a real shame. I mean, I suppose it's not a shame for my lungs that I quit, but, you know, or my general health, but it does seem a shame to me when I've actually got Cuban cigars in a drawer that aren't getting smoked. Out of the modern type ones, TechStorm, the SIG 550 series. Just because they're supposedly quite accurate and quite robust. Yeah, thank you. Like the stream, everybody, like Richard said. Let me have a quick look at the number of likes and everything. I'm going to go on the stream for at least over 2 hours. I want to see if I can find out what the longest stream is I've ever done in a second. Let me have a look. Because I wouldn't mind to beat the record if I feel up to it. I'll probably do quite a long stream tomorrow as well. Because I'm not working this weekend because I've got it booked off as holiday, which is really nice. It's a rarity. Okay, 66 likes at the moment, that's very good. Okay, so what's the longest stream I've ever done? That one's 1 hour 50 minutes, 1 hour 42, 2 hours and 2 minutes, 2 hours and 3 minutes. Let me put 50, it's a shame you can't seem to sort them by length, can you, according to this? Some of the Fallout New Vegas streams are 2 hours. I think the longest stream I've ever done is 2 hours 17 minutes. So if some of you are on that long, I might see if I can beat that, because I've still got some water in my bottle. Yeah, I like Apocalypse now. I've seen a really long cut of it as well. I don't think I did a 3 hour one, Mike. I think I did like 2.5 hours once, maybe. Right, let me search that on eBay and see if I find anything. There's one coming up which definitely has a... what's it called? The PRWU? It's definitely not an aircraft mask. Yeah. There's one coming up which is definitely like either somebody's modified a Soviet mask, or yeah, but I've seen the one you mean, which is definitely not an air crewman's mask. Yeah, let me just check. Let me see if I go to Studio, Creator Studio Classic, if I can see what my longest ever stream was, because I'm sort of interested. Just give me a moment. Right, Creator Studio Classic, because I actually can find things easier on that. Video manager. Sort by. Oh, you still can't sort it by length though. That's annoying. Never mind. Right, guess I won't find out. Yeah, can you sort if you go on the channel homepage by longest and shortest video? Because it seems strange you can't do that. I'd always thought that would have been a function. I had a look on eBay earlier, and as I was saying, there's a few S10s on eBay at the moment, like on bids, but that aren't very expensive. So if anybody was looking for an S10, it might be worth bidding on those at some point. I don't know. I don't have any reproduction helmets. I've got a reproduction PH gas hood. But if it's not too expensive and you want to get one, I guess. But I think there's a New Vegas one that was. Let me have a look. All right, videos, live. Alright, there's one New Vegas stream that's an hour and 33. 1 hour 53, 217, 156, 128, 104, 123, 110, 106, 131, 120, 57, 122, 105, 140. One 14, 113, 105, 120, 159, 106, 117, 55, 111, 52, 103, 121, 145, 1 hour 11, 38, 104. No, I think the longest stream must have been that hour and a half one, roughly, the New Vegas one. Sorry, the 2 hours 17 one. I'm pretty sure that's the longest one I can see. The one that's 2 hours and 17 minutes. Oh, if you like the GP7V over the S10, fair enough, but personally I don't see why, because the GP7 fogs up and it's less comfortable. I mean, you've done plenty of long Twitch streams, haven't you? And you used to do the 3-hour chat ones, didn't you, Mike? So maybe, yeah, you're just thinking of one of yours or just remembering it wrong. Have they changed how eBay bidding works? When did they change that? I've not noticed any differences in eBay bidding. It can be good, as long as they're, you know, sold as advertised. It depends, like a lot of things, it really just depends on what the price is, you know, how reputable the seller is. Yeah, my throat's already quite sore from this one. Well, not sore, but, you know, where it's a bit itchy and dry. But yeah, I only have to go another 20 odd minutes, don't I, to beat the previous record for a stream, so I want to try and do that. Especially because there's 31 people watching now. Are you thinking of like the World War I Russian mask, Alex? Because there's one that they had in World War I called something like the Zelensky Kumant or something like that. I'm sure somebody you will know better than me will tell you that. Right, don't forget to like the stream, everybody, if you haven't liked the stream yet, just because I'm going to be going on my longest ever stream and I'm out of coffee. Could do with some more coffee, but let's do it. Let's find some interesting things to talk about to make the last 20 to 30 minutes go fast. The stream's about gas masks, milsurp, just generally chatting about stuff, as long as it isn't politics or, you know, topics that upset people. You want about the SHMS? The SHMS is the one that looks like a skeleton, in my opinion. Oh, so it doesn't show... But haven't they done that for ages with the top bids? Because the stream's been going for an hour and 55 minutes. Generally, David, the streams go up and down in terms of people currently live viewing. So, you know, at some points they might be higher, some points they may be lower. I don't think the notifications ever get sent out for these streams to as many people as they should do. Because in theory, if 1% of my subs were watching a video at once, it would be like 550 people. And generally, I sometimes get in the range of 50 to 60 people, which is like 0.1%, isn't it? The easy way of telling is checking the straps and like the exhale valve and things like that. The CM3 is generally like a Bakelite kind of material. The Polish one's more like black plastic. Yeah, I've seen the trailer for the Chernobyl series. I'll definitely be watching that, but it's next month, isn't it, that starts? I might have done. Let's Google it and see if I recognise the mask. Alright, there's different masks coming up when I search it. So, there's one called Scott Vista 80. There's the Scott Full Vision, which is like the old Acme Full Vision mask, like the old Harry Warden mask from the original. What's it? My Bloody Valentine. It depends on what kind of knife they are, Lone Star. If they fall under any of the things that make them banned under the UK laws, then you can't have them. If they comply with UK laws, then you can have them. Yeah, every mask is better if it's stored in a satchel or whatever, just because it, you know, prevents damage to the mask. Yeah, I've got Rising Storm Vietnam, and the other Rising Storm, and Red Orchestra 2. Yeah, the CM3 is slightly higher quality, the rubber's a bit more comfortable and the straps are better. Right, see Alex, I should be streaming tomorrow. I don't know the exact time yet, and I'll be streaming Saturday and Sunday this week because I've got this Saturday and Sunday off work. That's cool. My Draeger M65 didn't even come with a bag, so I just had to stick it in another bag, but it was quite cheap. Now, you asked me about that earlier. I have to search it because I don't think I looked it up. Ah, cool. So they were like a volunteer force from Brazil to help the Allies in World War II? Because I know a lot of nations did things like that, didn't they? Where they had volunteer forces for various other factions. Depends on the generation of it, Aaron, because some of them just came in Flecktarn bags. I just find it interesting, David. Most of my stuff I get from eBay Quickscoper, just because there's like lots and lots of surplus sellers on eBay, often competing with each other for like low prices. So if you get stuff on eBay, you can get it for a good price. If you know, go in often in physical surplus stores, even if you can find them anymore, often they're a bit more expensive. But saying that, the surplus store before it closed down near me was good, but sadly they just closed down. So right, see you, Riley. If it's an actual World War II mask, then I'd assume so, Alex, because that's what, like £30 over here. Yeah, I'd say that's probably a good price. Yeah, but is it then illegal to assemble it, Peach? Because I know a lot of things like that, the laws are like you can have all the components, but as soon as you assemble it, it's illegal. There's lots of very strange things like that. Can you see the letter on it? Because the M40, I think, says S, M or L on the actual front of the mask, which is small, medium or large. Yeah, we have lots, for people that aren't in the UK, or people in the UK that might find this interesting. We have very strange laws in the UK with some things, where you can like own certain things, but not if you do certain things with them, which is really strange. Like, I don't want to go too much into, you know, things that are legal or illegal depending on what you do with them or how you own them. But there's lots of things like that where you can own all the parts of something, but if it's assembled, it's illegal. You know, or it needs a certain tax paid on it if it's all the bits put together, and it's illegal. I mean, there might be similar things with certain firearms in the US, I don't know, but it's just like strange things like that. There's certain plants that you're allowed to grow, but if you were to use them for whatever thing, then that's illegal, because then they're classed as drugs, not as, like, you know, pretty plants. There's lots of very strange laws like that. I don't quite understand why you'd have a law like that. You'd think they'd outright ban something, wouldn't you, rather than letting you have the individual components of it. Let me look it up, TechStorm, because I don't know about looking. But if you're asking me and you don't know, I might be able to help you. Oh, it's a mask. Okay, let's have a look. It's apparently a Bulgarian mask, according to the first thing that's come up on Google. So it's a Bulgarian mask that looks like they kind of ripped off an S6 or an S10, but the actual exhale and voice diaphragm are completely different. Interesting. There's a Czech mask, I think, that's a rip-off of an S10 as well, that's kind of weird looking, where it looks like they managed to copy some bits of the mould of the S10, but not all of it. Yeah, bits look like an S6, but the lenses look more like an S10, don't they? But yeah, the strap layout and everything looks like an S6, but then the exhale valve bit is like one from an older mask. Have you ever seen the film The Kill List Lexicon? No, I'm joking. Basically, I do YouTube as part of my thing, and I also work weekends at a garden centre near me. Yeah, it should be MC1. The small sizes are smaller. The larger the number, the bigger the size. So a size 1 MC1 is small. So yeah, if a size 1 GP5 fits you, a size 1 MC1 will definitely fit you, because the MC1's also got straps, so it's a bit more forgiving on sizes than GP5s. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be streaming tomorrow. What I'll do, Quickscoper, is on my channel's community page, when I know what time I'll be streaming, I'll put an announcement on there. But potentially, I might even do 2 streams tomorrow. I might do one in the morning, or the early afternoon, and then one in the evening. If that's the case, I'll do 2 shorter streams, or if I'm just going to do one, I'll do 1 longer stream. But the thing is, I like to do sometimes streams for people in different time zones, because quite often people who like to watch the streams say, you know, they can only watch at certain times a day. So that's why I like to sometimes do one in the morning, then one in the evening. But yeah, I'll definitely be streaming tomorrow. I just don't know for certain what time yet. But if I feel up to it, I definitely feel like doing a stream in the morning and a stream in the evening. I think you can buy gas masks in bulk if you buy the ones from like the old Soviet supply kind of places, where they'll send you like 50 GP5s in a crate. Oh yeah, cool, I'll definitely watch that. Yeah, I'll do probably an early stream then, and then one stream around 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or 7 to half 8 or something tomorrow night then. Are you somewhere in Western Europe then, Quickscoper? There's the MSA Millennium as well, TechStorm, which is similar to the MCU. I think that's the mask they did afterwards. It's probably a bit better than the MCU. That's okay, Richard. Like I said, if I'm doing 2 streams, you might catch the other one, but like I said, I just like to do a few varied times on the streams just to help people out who want to watch the streams, but they say, you know, I'm in Australia, or I'm, you know, somewhere in Eastern Europe, and it's not convenient to watch a stream in the evening. I have a community page, but I don't look at it anymore, Lone Star Patriot, because when I used to have it open so people could message me on there, then I used to get loads and loads and loads of spam, so I had to turn off the message function. Basically because, you know, I'd keep getting companies trying to, like, spam me with messages about stuff, so I had to turn that off. And then I used to still share videos to it, but then I think YouTube stopped the thing where you could automatically share videos to it, so then I just gave up on it. The same thing with my Twitter. I had a Twitter at one stage where it would automatically list the videos as soon as I'd done them on Twitter, so you could find them even if YouTube didn't share them, and then YouTube turned that off so you couldn't do that anymore. Again, ruining the entire function of why I did it. Because, you know, I don't want to have to check loads of different sites to, I used to quite a lot, Maxi Boy. I don't like doing them as much now, but, I used to get a couple of sponsor things from Fruite, who make torches, like flashlights. So I reviewed a few, like, Fruite ones. And the Fruite torches were very good, but they didn't always send me the models I kind of wanted, even though they were very good, you know, good torches they did send. And they sometimes required you to do 2 or 3 videos on an individual thing they sent you, which I didn't always like, because sometimes, you know, I wanted to do one video and then that was it. The best thing I ever got sent through YouTube was from Blades and Bows, and they sent me a free crossbow. And they sent me a really powerful Mancung Commando. I think it's called the Commando crossbow, was it? Can't remember now. No, it wasn't the Commando. But it was a compound crossbow. It was a 175-pound compound crossbow that shoots about 360 feet per second. So I did a few videos on that, and that's great. But the problem is, my garden, I have like 10 to 20 yards range in my garden to shoot a crossbow. It's too powerful for my garden, basically. You know, it's one of those things that you could hunt deer with at 100 yards or whatever. So sadly, yeah, don't really get a chance to shoot that. It's in my wardrobe over there, but I don't shoot it very often because I just don't have the range here to shoot it. I also got another very good thing from a Croatian company, if I remember right. They did archery targets. I'm trying to remember the name of their company. Let me look it up, because I want to actually let you know what that was. And they sent me a free archery target that's very good, that I've done a load of videos with. Let me just search my channel and I can tell you. It's annoying me, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Yeah, that clock there is 1 minute slow, or like 30 seconds slow, but otherwise it's accurate. The actual time is totally accurate. Yeah, it's got that weird kind of grate on the front, hasn't it, the OM10? OM90 even. Yeah, I've been good, Julian, thank you. The camcorder I use for my regular videos, not the live streams, is a Sony Handycam HDR CX240. No, I've never reviewed. I don't think I've ever been sent any camo stuff. There you go, that's the camcorder I use for all my videos. I don't know, it'd have to be an intelligent dog, one with good hearing and scent. And it'd have to comply with all the laws in your country, but something like a German Shepherd or whatever is generally a good choice for a guard dog. It's what lots of security forces and police use for guard dogs. Right, GSV Targets, that's it. GSV Targets Backyard Archer. You found it before I even did, Mike. But yeah, that's it. The GSV Target Backyard Archer. Thank you, Mike. And it's the one with the zombie faces on my one. That's like you can take that on and off. Yeah, as soon as you said GSV targets, I knew it was a backyard archer. It's just the entire thing, you know, it's like you say on your streams. I bet you if somebody asked you when you weren't streaming something like that, you could think of it straight away. But as soon as you're doing a stream, you just can't think, can you? It can protect you from alpha radiation, Nerfwolf, because alpha radiation is carried on dust, so a simple particle filter stops alpha radiation from getting into your lungs. However, it might stop beta radiation if the mask is thick enough rubber. I think it'd have to be a fairly thick rubber to stop beta radiation. It won't stop gamma, because it's ionizing, it'll go straight through the mask. No, I've not heard of that. I'll quickly Google it. That's an interesting looking knife. Is that sort of like a martial arts sort of fighting knife then, I take it? The only fighting knife I've got that's specifically a fighting knife, like a military one, is Fairbairn Sykes Commando Dagger, also known as a Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife, which was designed as like a commando knife, basically for like sneaking up on people and killing them silently. Obviously I've just got it because it's collectible, not that I go around killing people with it. Yeah, the Dutch, I think, when they used it though, put a special kind of exhale valve on it, didn't they? Like they had an export model of it that looked different. I have seen some really nice like Glock and Smith & Wesson knives that look, you know, like really practical field knives. Some of them actually looked a bit like Moras, but just built to a better... Not that Moras are bad, because obviously Moras are designed to be cheap, but some of the knives I looked at like that look like Mora knives, but just built to, you know, like a higher quality and price standpoint. Without looking, I don't know, I'll have to Google it. Just a second. Is that the one I've got? The diaphragm mask? Yep, if you search on my channel, US M3 gas mask, I've basically got that mask. There might be two variants, because often with the US things there's like an M number and then there's one with an A and a 1 or an A and a 2, you know, there's slight differences, but... Yeah, if you search on my channel, Alex, that's one of the few US masks I've actually got. But it's not got the filter, that's cut off. For airsoft, you don't really need a vest, because airsoft pellets aren't gonna... or airsoft BBs can't really penetrate your skin, at least at most of the places that, you know, so any kind of camo shirt should be fine. Because it's one of my favourite rifles. It's technically an L1A1 SLR, but yeah, it is a FAL. Yeah, I mean, as long as you've got goggles on that protect your eyes, but every airsoft site I've ever been to has had limits on what the power of the gun can be. Like, snipers can't be more than 700 FPS or something, and AEGs and whatever can't be more than 350 FPS, and you're not allowed to shoot people at under certain ranges with, like the sniper rifles. That's cool. I'm trying to think what knife that might actually be. Was that just like a generic kind of combat knife or like utility knife? I've never seen the sights for sale, and I think I actually may have seen some of the sights, like the Trilux ones, for sale at one point. But I think they cost like over £1,000. So, you know, I don't see the point really for something that sits on my wall having an optic for it, especially an optic on a gun that I can't shoot. Is that the mask everybody shills on every one of these videos, TechStorm, where they go, have you heard of this mask that's meant to be the best mask ever? Oh, it is that mask, what a surprise. Well, what you can just get for airsoft is like a sports cup, or if you are gonna bother, you know, wearing all this kind of stuff, you can get the actual groin panels, can't you, and get the like pelvic groin plates that go in them. Not plates, but you know, the soft Kevlar panels for the groin protection, if you really wanted to. But I'd find, whenever I've played airsoft, I found just wearing general military surplus camo kind of gear with some webbing on for magazines is good enough. You know, at the distance you're getting shot at, it's not really going to hurt. And if it does hurt, that's part of the fun, isn't it? Yeah, MOD is Ministry of Defence. It's just they've issued... let me just search Ministry of Defence knife and see if a load come up. Ah, yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah, that's quite a nice knife. So, MOD pattern survival knife. I'm pretty sure the place I bought the Fairbairn Sykes from also does a version of that. I might get one at some point if I see one for a decent price. Yeah, Sheffield Knives do sell it, okay. Yep, they sell it for £63.90 on there. Yeah, survival knife wood handle MOD specification. Phosphated carbon steel blade. Yeah, looks pretty nice. I'll tell you what, let me search Virginian swamps and see if I can find like what the terrain looks like on Google Images, and I might be able to suggest some camos for you. Okay, so you're going to have lots of grey trees. I guess like dark water, aren't you? Lots of green. Maybe tiger stripe. Is Cadpat going to be too dark, or would Cadpat work? It doesn't matter, Nerfwolf. You can hear better with a gas mask of ear holes, but you'd need an NBC suit on anyway in the event of something that would be going in your ears. So, what about British Woodland 95? Can you get British 95 DPM cheaply in the US? I mean, US M81 Woodland would probably look alright, wouldn't it, in there as well, because that's a similar thing. Let me just think of some more camos out of the camos I've got. It's just a bit difficult on top of my head. Hello, Jordan. I'm just trying to think of some of the camos I've got. Marpat might work alright. You can probably get Marpat alright in the States, can't you? Because that's US issue. Yeah, I think you definitely want something with a green sort of hue to it, because of how green it is. Alright, cool. So yeah, Marpat might be a good idea. Yeah, so you get some more Woodland M81. A lot of the time, British DPM I do think does get sold in the States, so if you can find British DPM, that's again very similar to US M81 if you wanted something a bit different but similar. Let me search that. I'm sure I've heard of that camo. Oh yeah, I know the one. Yeah, and they do different colour variations of it, don't they? Like some are more green, some are more brown. Yeah, it looks like a pretty good camo. Another one that might be quite good, but is quite hard to find unfortunately, is if you search Danish Flektarn. Denmark did a variant of Flektarn which was good. Which was like a very green and dark Flektarn. But let me search Sierra Nevada mountains. Probably going to be a desert pattern, I imagine. Right, Are you in a more brown area of it or a more grey area? Because some of the pictures are very snowy sort of grey areas, others are sort of brown desert looking ones. But there's a really good Brent video where he's in the desert somewhere in the US, and they actually found Rhodesian brushstroke worked really, really well. The reproduction of it. That's funny. Oh, actually, you just mentioned it. Rhodesian brushstroke isn't really plagiarised British DPM, it's plagiarised from the older British camo. British World War II brushstroke that the paratroopers had on the smocks. British DPM, I've got some DPM here, I think in this room. If I have, let me show it to you. Yeah, let me just get it off the door without hopefully breaking it. It's just I've got so many things on this door's coat hanger type thing that it's hard to actually get some of the things off. Let me just take this off, take that one off, and then hopefully I can now get the DPM stuff off. There we go, I've got him off. Right, maybe? It's taking something else with it as well. Sorry, technical difficulties, I will be on in a second. There we go, I've got him. Right, let me just shove this stuff back on here for now. Right, yeah, British DPM is the stuff I'm on about, the one that's the famous DPM, although there's a couple of variants. This is the one I was saying, British DPM would probably be very good for those swamps as well, because it's literally just brown and green, and it's quite a dark camo, so it looks good in woodland. But this is like the really famous British camo that yeah, I did a video on that Lone Star where I was on about camos, and I was saying in a lot of places, yeah, you do want different camos for different seasons. Like in the UK, where I am, Flecktarn is really good in the autumn, German Flecktarn, especially the older variants of it that look more orange and red, or something like Swiss Alpenflage, because in the autumn, you know, what you'd call fall in the US, you've got a lot more bright reds and yellows in terms of colour, so some of the darker woodland camos look too dark, they stand out. But you know, in spring and winter, the woodland camos work quite well, because you just get lots of brown muddy stuff and, you know, like green fresh leaves, or the evergreen stuff that doesn't die in the winter. But then sometimes when you're in actual summer itself, you want a different camo again, because where lots of trees have blossomed and you get a lot more colour variation, sometimes you want a pattern that's a bit noisier. And, like with the British MTP stuff I'm wearing at the moment, if I just stand back up on here a little bit so you can see it again properly, with this British MTP stuff, this is really good in the summer when it gets really hot, because if you get lots of dead, dry, arid grass, if we've had a summer without, you know, without much rain like we did last year, then this stuff ends up being really good, like multicam, because obviously the yellows and browns actually suit a dried out woodland better than you know, like the lush browns or greens from a typical woodland camo. I did buy a C7 gas mask once for like £20 I think, Textorm, because the guy just thought it was a generic World War II gas mask, even though it's the really rare Cold War one. Well, water camo's not a good idea in terms of for navies, because if a sailor falls overboard you can't see them and they drown. I think most navies now have stopped issuing blue kind of camos because of how, you know, in the sense, you know, it's not good for sailors. I think a lot of navies now have started issuing like bright orange or yellow camos. Just, you know, more so if a sailor falls overboard they know where they are, because you might want to camo a ship, but there's no point camo, you know, individual soldiers on the ship, is there, if they're... Yeah, I remember you from earlier. You said you're from Montenegro, didn't you, Dharma? So Montenegro uses lots of the old American equipment. Yeah, cheers, Adam. Yeah, one of my favourite camos that isn't a very good camo in terms of disruption Lone Star is old East German Stricktarn. Because Stricktarn is like this perfect shade that sits somewhere between Coyote Brown and somewhere between Olive Drab. So it's like a very bland green-brown colour. And it is such a bland green-brown colour that it works everywhere. But the problem with the Stricktarn is it's not disruptive, because they don't have like splodges of different colours on it. But if you want a camo that seems to just work everywhere, Stricktarn's a great one for that. But yeah, SS Lito Partisan is a brilliant camo, isn't it? In the summer, I reckon that would work really well here as well. I might do a camo test of it this summer. I mean, Cadpat would work in some areas if there's evergreen, like lots of evergreen stuff and stuff that's always green in the winter. What about like small drones for scouting or like combat drones? Stricktarn. What? Stricktarn rather than Stricktarn? Stricktarn. Okay, Stricktarn. I'll try to remember that, but I'll probably forget. Oh well. Took them a while to come on, didn't it? But what are the likes like compared to dislikes? I bet I've got a pretty good ratio, haven't I, on this video? But for the person saying about the Sierra Nevada mountains, I'd say maybe multicam or MTP. Just because, from what I'm seeing, there's lots of browns and greys. So a camo like this would probably be quite good for that. No, there's no point me doing a giveaway, especially for a mask that's so cheap. Because you can buy a GP5 for like $5 to $10 or pounds pretty much everywhere. I reckon Swedish M90 would be effective. I think the colours are fine on it. I mean, I think Swedish M90 is one of those camos that probably works better at a distance than up close. Because up close, I think the pattern is just too big and blocky to work well. It might do, but I think Swedish M90 is one of those camos that, you know, at a distance, especially if painted on vehicles, it would work really well. The current issue camo that I think looks really good is if you look up the modern Finnish military camouflage. And I think they do a winter version of it, a summer version, and one that's got like speckles of snow on for when there's snow, but it's not like whited out with snow. And that's a really effective camo. It's very similar to Flecktarn, but it's like a very speckly brown and green camo, and it's really hard even when you see pictures of people standing right at the front of the picture to actually make them out. Yeah, Yugo M1s, GP4s, Yugo M2s. There's a few other masks as well. Some masks, like some of the Czechoslovakian and Czech masks, are like a green or a kind of beige colour, and they might work actually with camo. Oh, is that the blue camo? Yeah. Yeah, because that's the good thing of a camo like Marpat, isn't it? Once you've got a good camo pattern, you can just change the colour. But the interesting thing is, if you look closely, I don't know how obvious this will be on the video, the British MTP, although it's multicam coloured for the most part, is actually the same DPM pattern for the most part as the older stuff. It's just with more colours and a different shade of colours. But the actual pattern, you can see some of the same splodges still in the pattern in various bits of it. I'm going to finish the stream in a couple of minutes though, because I've gone for 2.5 hours, and as far as I'm aware, this is the longest stream I've ever done on YouTube. Yeah, it says I've got 84 likes, so that's a lot of likes this stream. So very good. No, what I've got in here, Adam, is because I don't have a plate yet. I have bought. Well, I didn't buy it. I already had it. I've put like a really thick wooden chopping board in there that pretty much exactly fits in the dimensions of the plate section of this vest. So that, for the meantime, is just literally a placeholder. Then if I get a proper trauma plate, that will go in. But I've got the Kevlar front and back panels in it now. Alright, see you, Richard. Why don't they make Half-Life 3 instead? I think in the attic there's probably a cassette player. And I think my car radio I've got in the, out there, which was the one for my Golf, like replacement one. No, I don't think that played cassettes, but my Golf did have a cassette player in it as well as a CD player. But my current car obviously doesn't, because nobody bothers with them anymore. That it was a mass-producible cheap gas mask, Lucas, and that the Soviet Union made over 100 million of them. So in theory, in the event of a nuclear war, everybody could have been issued a gas mask. I'm streaming Saturday, but I can't do Saturday evening, I'm afraid, because I'm going out for a meal with my family. And I'm the designated driver. But that's alright, because they're going to buy the meal for me. Because if I wasn't designated driver, I'd have to pay towards my meal. Or, you know, pay for my entire meal and drinks and everything. But as I'm going to be the designated driver, I'm getting the food bought for me. So actually that works out better for me. Because, you know, if I worked out the price of having a meal and a couple of pints, or whatever, that would work out a lot more than the fuel cost. So, you know, I'm perfectly happy to be a driver for stuff like that. And it's not even that far a drive. When you say a glass mask, do you mean a gas mask? Well, I'm glad I've converted you though, Mr. Murica 45 ACP. I'm glad you've been converted into the cult of gas mask collecting and random militaria. Yeah, but don't forget that the military had their own mask, Maxi Boy. So that's 100 million plus GP5s. See the PDF children's masks on there? They made millions of those as well. And the military had their own masks. So when you factor in the numbers of all the civil masks put together, and obviously like GP4s, which are the older masks, and then all the Shim 41s, SHMSs, PMGs and all that, the number's insane. The number would have been greater than the total population of the Soviet Union. But yeah, the point is, compared to Britain and America, they actually made masks. Britain and America said, you know, if you're a civilian and the bombs go off, you're dead. But yeah, as for a stream Saturday, I will be streaming Saturday in the afternoon, I think. So apologies, Mike. I hope I don't miss your stream Saturday night if you're doing one. Hopefully I'll at least catch the end hour of it. But as I'm designated driver for my family going out for a meal, I probably will miss some of it, I think. Yeah, I think the common hazard thing, and like I said, I need to finish off in a minute or so because my voice is really going now and I've been going 2 hours and 34 minutes. I think the most probable use you'll ever have for a mask is some sort of like toxic fire, if there's a derailment of chemicals somewhere, or, you know, like a tanker crashes, or maybe some sort of industrial accident. I think compared to like military stuff, I think that's going to be where the biggest application of it is. Some sort of you know, like kind of civil disaster with it, rather than some sort of military attack is, I think, going to be the most likely thing for a gas mask. But, you know, if you're doing household chores, you can put the gas mask on while chopping onions, or dusting so you don't inhale the dust. Because I'm asthmatic, as I've probably said quite a few times on here. If ever I'm working with dust or anything like that that sets my asthma and my hay fever off, I put a mask on, and then I never have to worry about it. But anyway, that will wrap this stream up, because I have gone for 2 hours and 35 minutes, and now it is 34 minutes past 10. So thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah. So if you haven't liked the stream so far, please like the stream. I'll give a shout out to my merch as well. If you're interested in buying themed merchandise that would help support my channel, there's a Teespring link below, so check that out. But thank you everybody. As said, I will be on the stream tomorrow, but I assume it will be the afternoon, or maybe 1 in the morning and then 1 in the evening, but I don't know exactly yet. But see you then if any of you join those. Right, bye.